There has to be an easier way. Welcome to the broadcast, my dears, and to the kingdom, where the sunshine is relentless this week. But they say stormy weather is brewing, and it's been gloomy climes for the Spencers, because an uncle of William and Harry's has died, and that uncle was Lord Robert Fellows, who died on Monday, aged 82, and he was uncle to William and Harry via his marriage to the late Diana's sister, Lady Jane Spencer, in 1978. And he was also private secretary, as many of you know, to the late Queen Elizabeth II, and he was a very important one that was very close to her closest aide, really, during that time, aside from various ladies in waiting. But he was very close to her and worked with her so much during the 90s. And that rather ghastly season of the 3 divorces, 3 of her children got divorced in the 90s, or the marriage breakups, and all of the nastiness with Diana, and in the wake of Diana's death, he was there by her side. And his mother was another Jane, and her father, his grandfather, was the Brigadier General Algy Ferguson, who was the High Sheriff of Nottingham, and a great-grandfather of Sarah, Duchess of York. So do you see how it all comes full circle? It's a little bit incestuous as well. But there we go. There were 3 children issued, and they were Alexander, Eleanor, and Laura. And Laura is godmother to Princess Charlotte. So you see how the dots connect. And also, as well as being private secretary to the late Queen, he went on to be her extra equerry until 2022 when she died. And the late Queen always felt a debt of gratitude for his help in steering her through 1992, the famous Annus Horribilis. Speaking of which, I'm going to read out a comment from a viewer who went through his own Annus Horribilis recently. And I won't read out your surname, but his name is Jonathan. And the message is going to be quite uplifting, really, and gives a little bit of substance to the froth and bubble of this broadcast. Jonathan lives in Miami, in Florida, and he sent a message. He treated me to what would normally be a cup of sparkling water over the last few months, but I am back on coffee. Yes, in the last couple of days I've begun to reintroduce some whole foods, a very limited number of whole foods, and decaffeinated black coffee with just a little tiny dash of cream. So things are going to slowly return to some sense of normality for me, but only very, very gradually. Jonathan says, "Hi River, I was offensive to you a year or 2 ago when I was really going through it and had turned to drugs and was falling apart after my own Annus Horribilis. You had firmly set your healthy boundary, but also lovingly advised me on the right path to take. Well, I just wanted you to know that I did take your advice, and I have been clean since the start of the year. I'm reinvigorated in my career, recovered from the trauma of grief and abuse that I'd gone through in that year, losing mum, both beloved 17-year-old pups, marriage, and also suffering physical and emotional abuse while it was all happening. I still marvel how I survived. But also I'm so happy that now, as I look back, the pain has begun to lessen and acceptance and understanding replaces it more and more. Not that every day is easy, mind you, but life's colour and joy is returning." And then it trails off, my dear, your message cut off there, but as you can see, I got the gist of it. So that was a very encouraging message there from Jonathan. And you say that you were offensive to me a year or 2 ago. Well, I can't remember the exact details of our altercation that we must have had in the comment section, my dear, but I do remember you. I do remember the crux of things. I do remember you saying that you were going through a time being in Miami with drugs, and I think probably a season of promiscuity, and I've got nothing against promiscuity, but I think you were indulging in a rather unhealthy fashion of it. And perhaps I did give you some advice of a kind, not that I hold myself up as any sort of role model or giver of advice, but it seems that whatever I said to you worked. And I do have a tough approach, if you want to put it that way. And that is because I appreciate a tough approach, and they are the sort of friends that I seek out. Not tough people, if you will, but those who aren't afraid to speak clearly and without dressing things up. I appreciate people that can cut through it, if you get my drift. And So I do the same. Sometimes it reaches people, sometimes it doesn't. One has to be ready to hear, doesn't one? And it seems that Jonathan was ready to hear, and I can only say that it's my privilege if you credit me in any small way or large way of helping you out. It's wonderful, and it truly means a lot to me, and I get similar messages saying that I've affected you in unseen, unpredictable, unanticipated ways. It really is a joy. It really is a true joy and privilege. So I'm very happy to hear that, my dear. I'm glad to hear that you are clean and doing very well. And I can only wish you the very best for the future, my dear. Life, I was going to say life is a roller coaster, but I don't really want to quote Ronan Keating. But it is, isn't it, my dear? It's ups and downs, snakes and ladders. It's never going to be one straightforward plateau of sameness, of contentedness. I've never heard of a life that goes that way anyway. But we can all aspire to find the moments of joy where we can, and to find strength and fortitude in those moments which are less desirable and hard, and hurt people, don't they, my dear? That's what we always have to remember. I think it is a very true cliche, if you will. Hurt people. So if we did go into combat in the comment section a couple of years ago, perhaps you were hurt, so you were attempting to hurt me. I can't really remember. But what is always healing is this sort of message of reconciliation. So I thank you for it. A message from His Majesty the King was released yesterday following a very tragic incident here in the kingdom, in Southport, which is grave beyond belief, and it's one of those ones because it involves children that I can't even bring myself to really read about in much depth. My wife and I have been profoundly shocked to hear of the utterly horrific incident in Southport today. We send our most heartfelt condolences, prayers and deepest sympathies to the families and loved ones of those who have so tragically lost their lives, and to all those affected by this truly appalling attack. Charles R. This was an attack, an obscene attack by a 17-year-old on mainly children at a gathering, a yoga and dance class based on Taylor Swift and her music. Children had gathered together. Well, 3 of them ended up stabbed to death, with many more injured. What can I say? The kingdom is outraged, absolutely outraged, and words from the king or anybody else are utterly inadequate, so I'm not going to dwell on it at this moment in time. But even in the aftermath of that incident, a young man was arrested when crowds were gathering to pay their respects and share their condolences and their emotions. Some other chap in the crowd was arrested wandering around with a flick knife, apparently ready to strike. On the other side of the kingdom, in one of our coastal towns in Southend, groups of young men were filmed fighting with machetes, great big long machetes, dueling as if they are in Star Wars or some sort of thing. So there is a lot of frustration with the police at the moment in some quarters for not getting a grip on some of the problems that might be responsible for causing these outbreaks of violence. I must say there has also been rioting, and that is something that I don't approve of in this instance. I don't care to see police officers bruised and bloody with their vans and their transport set alight to make a point. We might have seen that coming from various protesters with regards to Palestine over the past year. I don't want to see it spurring into action elsewhere and for different reasons, no matter what side of the political spectrum people are on. I think it is just as depraved to dehumanise individual police officers for carrying out or not carrying out the tasks that they are instructed to do or instructed not to do by their seniors and by the system, by the entire regime. It is the institution itself that should be approached and lobbied if one has a disappointment or a grievance with it. King Cosy Socks has been up to his old tricks in Scotland again. King Cosy Socks. Ah, we love our King Cosy Socks, we truly do. And he was visiting a giant bog. Isn't royalty fascinating? The king visited the Forsnard Flows Visitor Centre in the Scottish Highlands, where he met with staff and local residents and young people and some choirs. and the Flow country is considered one of Scotland's national treasures, and it's home to some of the world's most diverse bog ecosystems. In fact, the area stores 400 million tonnes of carbon dioxide, which is more than stored by all of the other UK woodlands combined. The King is preparing to enjoy an extended break in keeping with royal tradition this summer, and he's been staying at the Castle of May, beloved of the late Queen Mother. He unveiled the Flow Country World Heritage Site plaque with a flourish and a desirable blankie. We have light again, my dears. I'm sure you noticed that the lamp beside me went out. That was actually the late Elizabeth coming through. She was telling us that she sends her love, to always bear in mind that recollections may vary, and that William was her favourite. Out of those two. She didn't mention the other grandchildren. On to a comment from Sandra Lee, who says, I know you love the US, but you have many admirers in Australia. We adore you, and you are very much appreciated. We love the King. Well, you're very much appreciated too, my dears. I'm sorry I can't specify every region, because we have Basketeers from every continent, every colour, all over the globe, every creed. And I think just as highly as all of them. I know that the States do get a special mention here and there. That's because there are a great deal of American fruits in the basket. And they are, after all, our naughty cousins, as in a way, so are Australians in a different sort of way. But everyone from the Anglosphere was birthed, really, from these shores, weren't they? Out of these shores, generally speaking, obviously, and poetically speaking. But whether Anglosphere or not, everybody is welcome here, so long as they're not a rotten fruit. But there was quite interesting news this week cropping up, a confirmation really from Australia, which is a boon for monarchy and for you, Sandra Lee, and for royalty, because Anthony Albanese, who is an avowed Republican, as you know, has abandoned his push for the nation to become a republic. Really, this is of course in advance of the King and Queen arriving in Australia in October for their tour, which has been abbreviated because of the King's health journey, but it's still going to be a fabulous tour. And actually I think that they should line it up pretty soon afterwards with the tour from the Waleses when Catherine is able to. I think that would be hugely successful and show the Harkles a thing or two about royal tours. But Albanese scrapped the Republican ministerial role that he created in 2022 after his election and said that he only committed to one referendum, the one for the Australian Indigenous voice, and that proposal was rejected. So he doesn't want to propose another referendum. And remember, he swore allegiance to King Charles III at the coronation. So I wondered if it was also out of his great respect for the King, because although he is a lifelong Republican, he has always declared that he has a great respect for the King, including lately he has announced that. So perhaps he felt that it would not be cricket to swear allegiance to the sovereign and then usher in such dramatic change at his behest. Well, at least they can breathe easy for a few more years by the look of it. Very frustrating for Republicans though, which one can understand. As for Princess Beatrice, it's been a fabulous week for her, because Tatler magazine seems to have caught up with exactly what I have been saying as a minority voice over the past couple of years, which is that Princess Beatrice has become something of a style maven, and what was once derided is now being celebrated. She has been hailed as the best dressed person 2024 in Tatler for the September issue. #1, Princess Beatrice of York. And it says that once a subject of much jest, thanks to that Philip Tracy hat at the Prince and Princess of Wales wedding, the masses weren't ready for millinery that marvellous, Beatrice has since become a beacon of sartorial elegance, pairing vintage-inspired cuts with fresh from the catwalk glamour. Resplendent in Richard Quinn, mesmerising in Monique Lhuillier, or beaming in Beulah, London, the princess is the pinnacle of contemporary splendour. There you are, in black and white. And another notable addition to the list was Annabel Elliott, The Queen's sister doesn't stand in the shadows. Interior designer Annabelle's style has stayed suitably grand since her appearance beside Camilla at the coronation. It's graceful satin sets and velvet suits all the way. Congratulations to you, Annabelle, my dear. You are now officially well dressed according to Tatler, but not as well dressed as Princess Beatrice. Boggles the mind. Okay, and now I want to have a grumble on the subject of dumbing down, which we talk about frequently here on the broadcast, the dumbing down of society and civilization itself. And yes, I am going to be an old stickler about it, and I've received lots of comments from people agreeing with me. One of those people is Christine Holbrook. Hello, Christine, my dear. How dumbed down this country has become. I've lived in the UK for 51 years. I'm from New Zealand. It saddens me as to what's happening. Couldn't agree more, my dear. And Kimar says, society now accepts very low standards. Why have our standards lowered that we now live in a fearsome society? Everything has been dumbed down. People now cannot speak proper language or even read cursive handwriting. How very sad we have become. And JR154, Madison, said, they have dumbed down education and now we have many teachers who are not fit for purpose. Well, thank you for your comments, ladies. And I'm sure that you would agree with me that there are indeed many splendid teachers, including, I know, some who watch this broadcast. So I'll just make that point for what it's worth. A lot of the issue is down to poor pay for the very important job that teachers do, but it's also the infiltration of woke ideologies into the school system, and much of it in our institutions now are very left heavy, and left is good if it's blended with a healthy mix of right or indeed centrist, preferably centrist, but we are getting very left heavy institutions and schools and universities in particular, left, with not enough balance, and traditions that needn't be old-fashioned, traditions that should be celebrated and continued, being thrown into abeyance. And two little things occurred yesterday on this subject. One was that I was having a chat, a little conversation with some little people under the age of 10, and I was asking them if they sang hymns at school, and they don't. I asked them if they knew All Things Bright and Beautiful, and they don't. What shocked me was when I asked what they did sing in assembly, and they told me that one of the songs that they sing was Keep On Movin' by the band Five, by the boy band Five. Now, I've got no problem with them listening to pop music. I think it's fabulous, and I was certainly into the disco during my school years, but this is what they sing to on a weekly basis in assembly. And instead of each little flower that opens, each little bird that sings, he made their glowing colours, he made their tiny wings, what they are treated to are these lyrics. Get on up when you're down, baby, take a good look around. I know it's not much, but it's okay. We'll keep moving on anyway. This is not cricket. This is not cricket. This exemplifies to me and illustrates very clearly what I'm talking about with the dumbing down of society. This is what they're singing in assembly. I daren't inquire whether they know the Lord's Prayer or not, whether that's recited. In fact, I can take a guess there that they don't know it. They do have carols at Christmas time. They do have carols at Christmas time. And of course, they split up this time of year for the summer holds. And I asked them who their teachers were going to be the following year. Do they like their teachers? Because that was always the thing with us at school. You'd sort of celebrate or commiserate who your new form teacher or tutor was going to be the following year at school. And they had no idea who their teachers were going to be, because either they weren't in place yet or they didn't know the teachers. There was no familiarity because they come and go rather quickly. Instead of having lifelong careers in the school, this is how things are changing. And then the other thing that was in the news yesterday that I noticed was the fact that it is the end of the line for a phrase that is used over the Tannoy train stations here in the kingdom. This train terminates here. This is a well-known phrase up and down the country. Well, this is being cancelled for being too jargony and too bureaucratic in tone. This train terminates here. I think it's rather simple and easy to understand, but no, apparently that's going. And it's being replaced with, this train ends its journey here. I mean, really? This is to make language easy to understand for everyone. I mean, really, this beggars belief. You couldn't make it up. Do these people who come up with this, and the language police, do they never introduce a new word to their children, to their children's vocabulary, just on the off chance, in case they don't understand it? Isn't that the point of using new language? Well, I think they are doing a disservice to the general public, whether they're foreign or British. I think they are underestimating people's capacity to learn and grasp concepts and vocabulary, and they are not considering that the original phrase is actually easier, in my estimation, for non-natives to understand. This train terminates here. Well, think of the Latin, the etymology involved in the word terminates, terminus, the Roman god, and terminatus. And the new version, this train ends its journey here, is actually likely going to be more confusing to a foreign ear. And I also feel that they are anthropomorphizing a locomotive, ending its journey here. It's the passengers that are journeying. Surely it is down to us. It used to be down to Britain to set the standard in language. It's our greatest export, for one thing. It was up to us to set the standard and to encourage others to reach up and elevate themselves, not stoop to condescend. Well, that's all I can manage for you today, my dears. Hot, hot, hot. But thank you for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. If you'd like to treat me to a coffee, an iced coffee, I think, my tip jar is in the description box. Ta-ra, my dears, and toodle pip.